This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.
Pushing and pulling, I want you, but you wanna leave. I hate you, I love you, you love me, yeah, you gotta be. If I'm your cage, leave. But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
Here we go again, people. This is the Passage Home Podcast starring the Dr. Stanley Rushing. And Dr. Stanley Rushing, you never failed to amaze me. You brought on another amazing guest by the name of Yuhooda. Dr. Stanley Rushing, can you get into the story, get into the podcast? Tell us a little bit about your guest, sir.
Yes, I will. I will introduce him in a second. I just want to let the audience know that the lead-in music from this on this podcast is actually Terrence Baxx himself, and that's part of his upcoming album. This is one of the songs from that. Now,
yes,
I think it's so amazing. So I requested this song especially to lead into my podcast and to end the podcast. We want to remind everybody, please subscribe, like, and add a comment to what we're doing. We're getting amazing results on YouTube, as well as, but we also have other mediums that we reach out on, which we will discuss at the end of this podcast.
Places like iHeart Radio, Spotify. Also Apple. We can't forget Apple. Apple definitely hosts us too as well.
And PodBean.
Yeah, PodBean as well. So we're all over there. Passage Home Podcast. What's on the agenda for today, sir?
Well, we have another one of my 50-year-old relationship friends on the line who has followed along with the journey, and you know, his bios will probably take up most of the show. But the first thing I want to do is have Yuhooda introduce Yuhooda and have him explain the definition of his name, and then we're going to go into his bio on how we met. And first, his bio is broken up in parts. Okay. But I want to introduce Brother Yuhooda.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Stan was saying my name is Yuhooda. That's Hebrew for Judah. That's the fourth son of Jacob. I got that name as we were on our journey within the, let's say, the movement, as we called it during that time. You know, there were so many different paths, and I was interested in going back to Africa from early childhood. And as I got to the age where I was on my own, I found myself going to a history class, as it was called, and I was a history major at that time in college at Southern Illinois University. And I had a little history under my belt, so I thought that I would, go there and see what this new approach to history was. And was there, I found out that there was a part of history that was omitted from the regular teachings. And I started pursuing an independent study and found myself at that particular history class where I met Stan. And so Stan took the name Kuje Chagalia, and I took the name Yuhooda. And what we were about then was learning as much as we could about life, about the trades, because we were to become A-teams within ourselves, so that, as Stan mentioned in his previous podcast, that we could go anywhere in the world and take care of our families and not just survive, but to thrive. So that was our intent. We started picking up trades and skills that we were targeting Africa during that time. The sentiment of going back to Africa was that you have to take something of value to Africa. So we were asking, what are brothers going to take back? And we were getting answers like philosophy and English, poetry, things like that. And to me, it was like, well, that's not going to build a nation. And if we're talking about going back to Africa, we're talking about an exodus. And with Africa in the condition that it is now, there would be a human catastrophe because everybody would starve. So I said the answer to that problem is to take modern agriculture and go to Africa and put the system in place that would prevent starvation by increasing the agricultural development, to a modern state and be able to absorb that. At that time, we were, Bob Marley's Exodus was the song of the year, and we were talking about Exodus. So that was my motivation.
Hey, Yuhooda.
Yes.
Let me guide you into this, because there's a little something I want you to put in there before you get into that. And that's
okay.
In 1974, I drove you. You made the decision as being an African American with roots from the South in Chicago, but you did something unusual that was not on the mind of any other black man in the North. You decided to go back to college for farm engineering. And most blacks are trying to get the stigma of coming from a farm off their consciousness. And so let's start in 1974 when I drove you down to Southern Illinois University to go into farm engineering.
Okay, we had decided that Africa was the goal. I wanted to change. I had 3 years of experience in 3 years of credits in history, but that wasn't going to do me any good. So I talked to the counselor, and they said you didn't have to go back and take any minors. You can just jump right into an agricultural curriculum. You're not a spring chicken anymore. Just take a accelerated course and go right through and get your degree. I said, fine, I'm coming. We had those old. Did you have that Volkswagen van then, or no? You had the truck.
I had the Dodge truck.
Okay, so we loaded up the family and we moved to Carbondale. Got down to Carbondale and I'm competing against children that had been brought up on farms and agriculture programs, but I was motivated. I didn't make anything less than a B plus then. Taking courses like farm electricity, farm management, animal industries, grain management, field crop production, learning everything that you really need to put a nation together. And I just prayed that, if the Most High in His infinite wisdom brought me down here, just give me, 2 years of experience and I can make it with that. And He gave me 3. And with that, I was equipped to do the job that I had set out to do. From Carbondale, from college, I got hired by the largest agricultural company in the world at that time, Cargill. They hired me into the animal feed division. And I thought that was a letdown because I wanted to work on tractors and combines in the field and, and machinery, because I had the agricultural machinery background, but I wanted to experience. But I didn't get the opportunity to work for a Ford or John Deere or a white equipment company. They sent me into Cargill. But that was the job I needed to get. It gave me the experience that I needed to put a system in place that would give security to any area that I put the system in place in. And so that was my motivation at Cargill. From Cargill, I left and went to the largest African-American hair care products manufacturer, which was Soft Sheen Products. And I just want to shout out to Mr. Gardner, the owner of Soft Sheen Products. His mantra was, you being an engineer, I don't want you to come in here and cut jobs. I want you to put in mechanisms that's going to establish jobs. We're not here to make money. We're here to service this community. And that has stayed with me in my approach to engineering all this time. And like I said, I just want to shout out to Mr. Gardner, the owner of Soft Sheen. Beautiful person. From Soft Sheen, I went to Avon. Avon, at that time, was the largest cosmetics manufacturer in the world. Even though people, they look down on Avon as a cheap manufacturer of cheap products for housewives, but they were also manufacturing co-packing for companies like Cher, Elizabeth Taylor, Billy D. Williams, Georgia of Beverly Hills. And so all of those rich folks that were looking down on Avon housewives, they were getting the same perfume with just a little bit of sprinkle dust in it. From Avon, then I went to, Nestle Foods. There I learned food preparation, food manufacturing. And so if you notice along the way, I'm picking up a lot of industries that I can implement. And that was my goal. Whenever I would, move into another assignment, I would learn as much as I could about that assignment to be the best and to make myself essential to the operation. And it served me quite
Definitely
well.
Essential.
Okay. That's my industrial career and me getting into...
Hold on for a second, because
yes,
the person on AJ is going to be giving us the cutoff. And I want, there's so much that you have to say. I want to direct you around. So tell us how you got, and then you parlayed this into actually going to Liberia. And while you were there, you provided parenthood and for a Liberian child, and met your actual relatives over there in Liberia, and so let's get into that, right? Because it's one of the core things about that what you did, not what all that you did, what you did with it. That's amazing.
Okay. Our mentor, you mentioned his name is Baba Daniel. When he went to Africa, he was known as the Reverend Robert Knight. And so after he came back, he had met people in Africa, and this is before computers and the internet. You had pen pals. So I asked him if I could be pen pals with some of the people that he met in Liberia. He said, sure, he needed some help, responding to letters. So created a pen pal situation. We would exchange gifts for Christmas. He sent me a dashiki. I sent him a camera. We write letters and got to know family. And then he had a job in government, and the government changed hands. He lost his job. And he asked me if I would assist him with educating his daughter and become her guardian. And I said, sure. I don't have a daughter at this time. I got, 3 sons. They'll give me some balance. And so his daughter came here to the United States with relatives, and then she wound up liking the idea of staying with me and my family. And so we put her in school and raised her from 12 years old until, educated an adult. She finished high school, and then she started working and became a regular, let's say, American girl. In the meantime, the family that she came from really appreciated me taking their daughter and educating her in America. So they just were beholden to me. And so her father came to the U.S. to see how she was living. And after he got here, he wanted to return home, and he took me back to Africa with him as his guest. And so when I got back to Liberia, I didn't live in the hotel or in downtown Monrovia. I stayed off the beaten path, with the people. and I ate with them, and I got to learn their customs, and they accepted me as, one of their own. And my assignment was to follow up on the work that the Reverend Robert Knight had did to mend ways with some of the breaches that had occurred from a previous association with African Americans. And I told them what my agricultural plan was, and they could not believe I had the insight to be able to lay down a development plan that I told them about. And they did find out that I, in fact, knew what I was saying. And so they adopted me into the tribe officially, and they gowned me honorary chief in the Gola tribe as part of the Dingola nation that is from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. Now, with the honorary chief entitled, or they gowned me. In Ghana, they instool you, but in Liberia, they put a gown on you. So that particular trip, I didn't find my relative. Nobody told me anything about any branch of my family being there. I only stayed there a month and a half, and I returned to the States. So when I returned to the States, that's when the civil conflict broke out, and all hell Liberia just went, it was just, terrible. And the family scattered, the tribe scattered. And so here in the U.S., I had most people knew my address of the tribe, so they would write to me in the U.S. And during that time, here's what I did. When you wanted to make a copy of a letter, you had to put a piece of carbon paper between the letters and, duplicate that way. So I would take carbon paper and slice portion the same size of the envelope so you couldn't see through it, and put a, $20 bill in the envelope with a letter telling one family member where the other family member was in Belgium now, the other one was in Sierra Leone, one was in Ghana, the other was in Rhode Island. And I was able to connect the family and let people know who had survived and was able to escape, through these letters. And then that little $20 was going a long way in a war-torn country. I was able to exercise my honorary chieftainship to rescue my tribe, is how I like to put it. During that time when Liberia was in turmoil, I decided to not stop my efforts, so I switched over and tried to do some things in Ghana. When I went to Ghana, this young man heard my voice and said, "You're an African American." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, do you know there are Liberians here in Ghana?" I said, "No, I didn't know that." He said, "Yeah, they're here from the war. There are refugees there's a refugee camp, 15, 20 kilometers from here. You should come and visit, come and see." And he asked me, who did I know in Liberia? And I told him this fellow named George Brocious. He said, "Yeah, I know him. That's my cousin, actually." Everybody in Liberia is cousins. So I made a trip to the camp, and I told him that if you get word to Liberia that I can help my family in Ghana, but I couldn't, there's no way to contact them because all the services and telephone lines, water, everything was down in Liberia. And so my friend called me back from Liberia and said, "Brother Horton, I got word that the rebels are coming to kill me today. You got to help me get out of Liberia." And so I went to the bank and sent him $1,000 immediately. And he took that money and got on the last boat going to Ghana. And as soon as the boat pulled away from the dock, they heard gunfire, and the rebels were shooting up the compound where he had just left. He made it out of there just in the nick of time. Made it to Ghana, got to the refugee camp. They processed him, and then he said, "We're living in a tent." And so I sent him, me and this brother named Ovadia. I've lost contact with him. He and I recall we sent money so that he could build a house in the refugee camp, a small 2-bedroom house. And during the conflict, I was told afterwards that over 500 family members and Liberians made it through the house as refugees, stayed for a week, got the United Nations stipend, rested, freshen up from being, refugee, was able to just, recompress and get back into being human being. So I was very, very proud that just by acting, I was able to save some lives, turn some things around.
Right. Hey, Yuhooda, we're going to have to bring you back. But just one last part I want to get in before you leave. Tell us how you actually ran into your actual relatives there in Liberia.
Okay. All right. During the lull in the fighting, as they say, I was told that everything was calm and I could come to Liberia and we can implement the plan. So I fly over there and things are pretty calm because they got a truce and they're trying to stabilize and re-elect government and get back on their feet. And this one guy walks up to me and said, "You're a Horton." And I turned around and say, "You don't know me. How do you know I'm a Horton?" He said, "You're a Horton." I said, "My name is Smith." He said, "I don't care what your name is. You're a Horton." And I said, why do you say that? He said, "Because I used to work for this fellow named Romeo Horton, and I know the Hortons." And I just took it to heart, and I just said, "Wow." And so I walked, we kept going. Maybe a week later or so, another guy came up to me and said, "You're a Horton." And I said, "Oh, here we go again." And he said, "Yeah, they live right over there on, such and such a place." And I told my people that I had went to see, I said, "All right, I want to meet this family of Hortons, okay?" And so they said, "Oh, man, that's right. We could have told you that before. We didn't know, blah, blah, blah." So we went over to the Horton compound. And as soon as I walked in, I saw my little brother. The Horton fellow that was there was almost a twin image of my little brother. He looked at me and said, "You look just like my brother that passed away, Romeo." And he said, "Welcome home, cousin." Just like that. Just like that. Now, the connect from Chicago, from America, my grandfather, before he passed, he was telling us some family history, and he said one of his great uncles, now this was back in the 18-somethings, said he stevedored to Jamaica, and that's the last they heard of him. This was before, black folks learned to read and write and stuff like that. Stevedored to Jamaica. My first cousin went to Jamaica for Mardi Gras or partying and went down there and signed a name and said, "You're a Horton." "No, there's Hortons that live here." She went to meet the Hortons in Jamaica and found out that the Horton in Jamaica was from the Mississippi Horton that came to Jamaica as a stevedore. And the Horton fellow that went to Jamaica took a ferry to Liberia and established the Horton clan in Liberia. I didn't know any of that. I just knew my grandfather had said one of the Horton boys had stevedored to Jamaica. I had no connection to Africa from that. But when I got to Africa, there all these people telling me I'm a Horton, I'm a Horton, I'm a Horton. And I finally went there and met the Hortons. Wow.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I was, they had me at cousin. The beautiful thing about the Hortons, I might say, is that they were not exploited. They set up, some of the first schools. They started educating the Bassa tribe. And the Bassa tribe rewarded the old man with a tract of land that he bought and turned it into a rubber plantation, a rubber farm, and started educating the Bassa tribe to modern farming technology and improved the whole area where he settled among the people. Right, and I got to visit their compound when I was there. Beautiful. Yes.
We're going to bring you back, and we're going to leave this as a cliffhanger to get into the other spiritual things that happen to you. But this is just a teaser. We're going to get into the other spiritual things that happened to you while you were there. But we want to say
thank now or later.
And I want to turn it over to Terrence right now to close us out.
Well, listen, one thing I want to say is that's a marvelous story, man. Like, I'm learning as I go. It's such an honor just to be able to be in the presence of like great African-American men with so much wisdom and poise about themselves. And I'm learning as we go. And then one thing I'm learning is that just to be able to live off the land and be able to build a home from the floor up, from the ground up and live, that's very essential in life. And for you to take that back to Africa and find out your roots, where you come from, where you develop, like that is sent by the Most High. Yeah, that makes me want to go and follow the Most High and find Him that way. You feel me? Like, just the fact that you didn't have that fear. Like, there was no fear in what you did. Like, you just went, you moved forward, you found your family, and you connected the dots from America all the way back to Liberia. And you added to their culture that agriculture is really what you need to survive, to be able to herd animals and grow vegetables and just live off the land and then build homes. Like, what more do you need? What more do you need in life? So I feel like, wow, I'm so, when it comes down to that, it's like, I got a lot to learn, man. I'm glad to be able to, that Dr. Stanley Rushing, I could talk to him and his amazing guests. This was a beautiful show. The Passage Home podcast. Make sure y'all go ahead and just listen to us, download, subscribe, share. Man, we have some jewels that we drop on this show, and it's a beautiful show. Passage Home podcast, man. Y'all have a great night. Thank you, Yuhooda, again for coming on the show, sharing your beautiful story, your beautiful testimony, and just, your way of living. It was a beautiful show tonight. Y'all have a great night.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, once again, thank you for listening to the show. Don't forget, we're on Apple, YouTube, PodBean, Google Podcasts, and anyone who wants to sponsor or we could talk about your product or the service that you may have, go ahead and hit us up on passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, my beautiful people, y'all have a great night. And we out of here.
Should I go right? What I'm doing, investing in your life. Time wasted, my body loves it, my mind hates it. Fights in public and we can't erase it. Everybody saw, should've seen their faces. Face it, it's only love when we naked, that's basic. I'm trying to fly like a spaceship and take it beyond the stars, beyond the...
This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.